They say your life doesn't fall apart all at once, it crumbles piece by piece. But when my husband looked at me, standing in the kitchen of a home I helped build, and said, "You're just a guest here," everything collapsed in a single moment. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just paused. Because what he didn't know? Guests don't leave quietly. And I had no plans of walking out with nothing. My name is Natalie Carter. I'm 33 years old, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had a solid marriage. Not perfect, but solid. I met Brian 8 years ago at a real estate seminar in Dallas. I was new in the game, fresh out of grad school and full of ideas. He was 5 years older, charming, experienced, and owned 2 properties already. To me, he was a dream, someone who believed in big goals and even bigger futures. We married a year later. Everything moved fast, maybe too fast, but I was head over heels. My parents weren't sure. My sister warned me, "You move fast when you're afraid of standing still." I ignored her. Brian made me feel safe. Or at least he used to. We built everything together, at least I thought we did. We flipped our first house within our second year of marriage. I handled the designs, the budgets, the vendors. He took care of permits and sales. It worked. By year 4, we had a 3-bedroom in the suburbs and were co-owners of a small rental business. But somewhere between our 6th and 7th anniversary, something shifted. Brian became distant. He started locking his phone. His meetings ran longer. He said I was too intense with money, and that I needed to chill more. I brushed it off. I told myself all couples hit ruts. Maybe we were just stressed. Then, a month before my birthday, I found a hotel receipt in our glove box. It was for a suite downtown. The date matched one of his supposed conference weekends. My stomach dropped. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He didn't even flinch. "Natalie," he said, shrugging, "I needed space." "It's not a big deal." Not a big deal? After 7 years of partnership? After sleepless nights budgeting, handling tenant complaints, renovating kitchens with my own hands? But I didn't leave. Not right away. We agreed to counseling. It lasted 3 sessions before he quit, saying, "This feels like punishment." So I started documenting things. Every bank transfer. Every whisper of a lie. Every receipt. I didn't know what I'd do with them yet, but my gut told me I'd need them. Fast forward 3 months, his tone changed. He started talking about his investments. His house. His future plans. He even told a contractor, right in front of me, that I'd just help out sometimes. I swallowed my pride, nodded, and kept my voice calm. But inside, something hardened. And then came the breaking point. It was a Thursday. I had just finished cleaning out the guest bathroom after a pipe leak. I walked into the living room, hands still damp, and saw him sitting on the couch, scrolling his phone. I told him the leak was fixed. He looked up, completely detached, and said, "You're just a guest here, Natalie. You don't need to fix anything." A guest? In the home I helped buy? The home I cleaned, repaired, funded, and protected? My mind went blank. Then sharp. Razor sharp. I didn't argue. I didn't say a word. But something in me snapped awake. Because if I was just a guest, then I'd leave like one. And I'd take everything he never saw coming. Over the next few days, I acted normal. I cooked. I smiled. I laughed at his jokes, what few he still cracked. But behind the scenes? I was preparing. I contacted our financial advisor, pretending to clarify something. Turns out, our joint investments weren't so joint anymore. 6 months ago, Brian had quietly moved $80,000 into an account with just his name on it. I had access to our real estate LLC. I checked the books. The man had been moving profits into his personal accounts and listing me as a contractor, not a co-owner. Worse, he had started paperwork to remove me from the company registry completely. That's when I realized he wasn't just pulling away emotionally. He was erasing me. So I got to work. I met with a lawyer. Quietly. Smart woman, used to be a forensic accountant. We built a case. We gathered receipts, emails, contracts. I traced every dollar I ever put in, every renovation I handled, every tenant agreement I signed. Turns out, I had done a lot more than he'd accounted for. I also checked the house deed. It was still in both our names, but he'd been planning to refinance it alone. I let him think I was clueless. Meanwhile, I prepped my exit. 1 week before his planned business trip, I bought boxes. I didn't pack anything yet. Just kept them in the garage. I waited. Then, the day he left, I moved fast. By noon, a moving crew, paid in cash, was boxing up everything that was legally mine. I even took the sectional couch. I had the receipts. It was a birthday gift from me to me. I took the washer and dryer too, bought with my card. The kitchenware? Mostly mine. And the home office? Every file, book, and computer, mine. But I wasn't done. Before I left, I went into our shared bathroom and placed a folder on the sink. Inside, a copy of the LLC filing I submitted that morning, officially separating the business and claiming half the assets. A second folder had copies of my lawyer's cease and desist letter, blocking his refinance attempt. And a third folder? My signed divorce papers. I left a sticky note on top. Since I'm just a guest, I'll let myself out. Enjoy your empty house. Then I locked the door behind me and dropped the key on his pillow. The silence in that house as I walked out? It wasn't sad. It was sacred. I wasn't leaving defeated. I was walking away clean. I didn't cry on the drive to my sister's house. I didn't turn on the radio. I just sat in silence, gripping the wheel, letting the weight of what I had just done settle in. Freedom felt strange at first. When I walked into my sister's guest room, boxes behind me, she hugged me tighter than she ever had before. "Took you long enough," she whispered. She always knew something was off with Brian. She never said, "I told you so." She just brought me tea, pulled out clean sheets, and left me to breathe. But I wasn't here to heal. Not yet. I was here to finish what he started. And I wasn't done. Brian didn't call me that night. Didn't text the next morning. He probably walked into that gutted house and froze. I could imagine him walking through the rooms, realizing the TV was gone, the couch was gone, the kitchen was stripped down. Even the laundry detergent had vanished. All legal. All mine. But he was prideful. He wouldn't give me the satisfaction of a reaction. Until the email came. Subject, "We need to talk." No hello. No apology. Just, "I think you overreacted. You left without warning. Let's handle this maturely. I'm open to negotiating asset division." Negotiate? I stared at the screen for a second. Then I smiled. He thought I had left out of emotion. That I hadn't planned every second of it. I didn't respond. I forwarded the email to my lawyer and kept documenting everything. The next week, Brian tried to log into the business account. Locked. Because I'd changed the access codes and filed the split. And while he still owned half, he couldn't move a dollar without my approval. He called me 3 times in a row. I didn't pick up. Then came the text. You're being vindictive. This isn't how grown-ups handle separation. Separation? We weren't separating. I had filed for divorce. And I was about to file a claim for business mismanagement and financial fraud. We had built that company together, but I had the paper trail. He had erased me on paper. I put myself back in with a vengeance. Brian finally hired a lawyer. A loud one. They sent over a proposal. Brian wanted to amicably divide everything. Translation? He wanted the house. The business. And he'd let me keep my personal savings and car. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my phone. I let my attorney handle the reply. A week later, his lawyer's tone changed. Suddenly they wanted mediation. Suddenly they were open to compromise. Because suddenly they realized, this wasn't some emotionally devastated woman flying off the handle. This was a woman who had evidence. A woman who had documentation. A woman who had been smart enough to build while her husband plotted to erase her. The next month was a blur of meetings, statements, audits, and legal back and forth. But I stayed calm. Every time Brian tried to make me doubt myself, I reminded myself, I wasn't a guest. I had never been a guest. I was the builder. I was the backbone. The reason he got comfortable enough to think I'd stay no matter what. He underestimated me. Like so many do. He thought I'd break. Instead, I rebuilt. At mediation, Brian wore his favorite navy suit. The one he always said made him look powerful. But his face was pale. His hands shaky. My lawyer laid everything out. We had timelines. Screenshots. Bank statements. Witness testimonies from vendors he'd lied to about my involvement. He leaned back, eyes darting. This isn't necessary, he mumbled. But it was. Because when someone looks you in the eye and calls you a guest in your own home, you don't walk away quietly. You set the whole illusion on fire. That day, Brian signed over his share of the business. He kept the house, what was left of it. He walked away thinking he had won. But the real win? Was mine. Because I kept the business. And the business was booming. I rebranded. Renamed it. And every single contact that once respected him? Now called me. I didn't go back to that house. Not even once. But I did drive by, just once. There were weeds in the front yard. The mailbox hung crooked. Brian stood on the porch, arguing with someone on the phone. He looked smaller. And for once, I didn't feel anything. Not rage. Not sadness. Just closure. I turned the corner and didn't look back. Back at my sister's, I started to unpack, not boxes, but my new life. One decision at a time. No more walking on eggshells. No more shrinking myself to make someone else feel big. I started going to networking events again. Real estate flipped from just a job to something exciting again. And the woman I saw in the mirror? She was no guest. She was the owner. Brian tried to move on, or at least pretend to. He created a new Instagram account, full of photos showing off some version of a happy life. Trips he never could afford, cocktails he didn't like, fake smiles with people who didn't know the real story. It didn't bother me. I wasn't watching to compare. I was watching to confirm he was still trying to win an image war. And I'd already won the reality war. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding everything he tried to destroy, and this time, I was doing it without walking on eggshells. The business? It grew faster in 6 months than it had in the last 2 years. Turns out, clients preferred working with me. I was honest, efficient, professional. And now, I wasn't being second-guessed at every turn. I hired a team, mostly women. Mostly people who had once been overlooked. We understood each other. And that understanding? It created something stronger than Brian ever built. I didn't need revenge. I became the revenge. My name started showing up in real estate publications. I got invited to panels, podcasts, local features. People asked how I bounced back after a divorce. I always smiled and said, I didn't bounce back. I built forward. One day, I was speaking at a real estate conference. Just a small one, nothing massive. But it meant something to me. Because this time, I wasn't Brian's wife. I was just Claire. And I owned that room. After the panel, a young woman came up to me. Nervous, eyes wide. She whispered, I'm going through the same thing. He says I wouldn't survive on my own. I gave her my card. Looked her straight in the eye. You will. And not only that, you'll thrive. Just don't let them shrink you. That moment stuck with me. Because that used to be me, begging for space in my own life. Now, I had the whole stage. One morning, a former mutual friend of Brian's reached out. She didn't take sides during the divorce, too scared to upset him. But now she messaged me with a screenshot. Brian was selling the house. It looked sad. Cold. Empty. Just like it had felt when he tossed the keys at me and said I didn't belong. Apparently, he couldn't afford the upkeep. Business hadn't worked out. His name was tied to a few bad contracts. None of it surprised me. People like Brian build on control, not courage. The moment they lose their grip, the whole house crumbles. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't need to say anything. The silence was louder. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo of me, at the real estate event, speaking on stage. Under it, one line written in tiny letters. You were never just a guest. I stared at the photo, stunned. Maybe it was Brian. Maybe not. Didn't matter. Because now, every time I looked at that image, I didn't think of him. I thought of every woman who had been called too emotional. Every woman who got labeled extra or ungrateful just for asking for what was fair. Every woman told to shrink. I framed it. Hung it in my office. Not as a memory of what I lost, but a reminder of what I took back. And here's the truth. Sometimes the people who try to erase you from the story end up writing your greatest chapter. Brian tried to make me a footnote. But I became the headline. If this story moved you, hit the like button, subscribe to Revenge Tier, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because no one forgets the woman they thought was replaceable, until she becomes unstoppable.